I have worked the night desk at the Pinecrest Motel in Dillon, South Carolina for 6 years. In 6 years, I have seen everything this job has to offer. Truckers, travelers, families, couples, people running towards something, people running away. I have seen it all, except for what happened on the night of March 14th, when I got a phone call from Room 12. Room 12 had been empty for 3 weeks. It had been empty since the last guest checked out and left behind something in the bathroom that the cleaning staff refused to discuss, and that I was asked never to ask about again. When that phone rang at 2 a.m. from a room that was locked and empty, and had been locked and empty for 3 weeks, I should have ignored it. Instead, I picked it up, and what was on the other end of that line has not left me alone since. My name is Sandra Pruitt, and this is the last thing I ever expected to happen on a Tuesday night in March in Dillon, South Carolina. The Pinecrest Motel had 24 rooms arranged in a horseshoe around a parking lot. Built in 1962, never renovated beyond what was strictly necessary. The kind of place that had seen better decades and knew it and had stopped pretending otherwise. I worked the night desk Sunday through Thursday, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. $8 an hour plus tips that almost never came. A small desk with a computer that froze constantly, a television mounted in the corner that I kept on low for company, and a phone system so old that the manufacturer had been out of business since the Clinton administration. Room 12 was at the far end of the left arm of the horseshoe, ground floor, away from the parking lot. The room guests asked for when they wanted privacy. The room I had learned to feel slightly uncomfortable about without being able to say exactly why. The last guest to stay in room 12 had checked in on February 18th. Paid cash, male, maybe 50s, quiet, asked for extra towels and never used them. Checked out February 22nd without stopping at the desk. Anita, the head of housekeeping, had gone in to clean the room that morning. She came back to the desk 10 minutes later, white-faced, hands shaking. She told me there was something written on the bathroom mirror. Not with marker or lipstick. Written in something she could not identify. Something dark. She would not tell me what it said. She told the owner. The owner went and looked, came back and told me room 12 was closed for maintenance, not to assign it, not to discuss it with anyone. I did not ask questions. Room 12 stayed dark and locked for 3 weeks, until 2:14 a.m. on March 14th, when the phone on my desk lit up with the extension for room 12. I stared at it for 3 rings. A phone ringing in an empty locked room at 2 in the morning. Equipment malfunction. I told myself this immediately. The old system acted up constantly. False rings, dead lines, calls that connected to nowhere. Completely possible. I picked up. Pinecrest Motel front desk. Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Even. Not distressed. Not urgent. Just breathing. Like someone who had been waiting a long time for an answer and was in no particular hurry now that they had one. "Hello?" I said. The breathing continued. Then a voice. Female. Older. Tired the way people get when they have been tired for a very long time. "Is Gerald there?" I told her there was no Gerald at the front desk. I asked if she wanted to leave a message. Silence. "Gerald always worked Tuesdays," she said. I told her I worked Tuesdays now. Had for 6 years. A longer silence. "How long have I been in this room?" she said. Something cold moved through me. I told her room 12 was not currently occupied, that I was not sure who she was or where she was calling from. "I checked in," she said. "Gerald checked me in. He always gave me room 12. I looked up Gerald in the system. Gerald Pines, night desk. Resigned 2014. 9 years ago. "Ma'am," I said, "I need you to tell me where you are calling from." "Room 12, she said. "I have always been in room 12. I called my manager, woke him up, told him the phone in room 12 had rung and there was a woman on the line saying she was inside. He arrived in 20 minutes. We walked to room 12 together, his master key, my flashlight. The room was empty, bed made, towels folded, everything exactly as it had been left after the cleaning crew's last visit 3 weeks ago. No person. No phone off the hook, no sign of anyone. My manager checked the phone, plugged into the wall, working order. He asked me if I was sure I had not imagined the call. I showed him the call log on the front desk system. Room 12, 2:14 a.m. Duration, 4 minutes 37 seconds. He looked at it for a long time. Then he told me not to mention it to anyone and went home. I went back to the desk. At 3:40 a.m. the phone rang again. Room 12. I picked it up. The same woman's voice. I remember now, she said. I checked in March 14th, 1987. Silence. What year is it? She asked. I told her. A very long silence. I have been waiting in this room for 36 years, she said. For what? I asked. Her voice when she answered was the saddest thing I have ever heard. For someone to finally answer the phone, she said. The line went dead. I looked up the Pinecrest Motel guest records going back as far as the system allowed. 1987 was before the computer system. Paper records only, stored in boxes in the back office. I found the March 1987 register at 4 a.m., March 14th, 1987. Room 12, one guest. Female, paid cash, name Ruth Calloway. Checked in, never checked out, no record of her leaving. No record of anyone noticing, just a name on a line with a check-in date and a blank space where the checkout date should have been. I searched Ruth Calloway online, missing persons report. Dillon County, South Carolina. Filed March 21st, 1987 by her daughter. Last seen checking into the Pinecrest Motel on March 14th. Never seen again. Case still open. I still work the night desk at the Pinecrest Motel. Room 12 is back in rotation now. Guests stay in it regularly. Nobody reports anything unusual. But every March 14th, at exactly 2:14 a.m., the phone rings. Room 12. I always answer it. And every year the same voice asks the same question. Is Gerald there? And every year I tell her no. And every year after a long silence she says, tell him Ruth called. And the line goes dead. And I sit at my desk in the quiet of the Pinecrest Motel at 2 a.m. in Dillon, South Carolina. And I think about a woman who checked into a motel room in 1987 and never checked out, and has been calling the front desk ever since. Waiting for someone to answer. Waiting for Gerald. Waiting in room 12 for 36 years. And I wonder sometimes, what is she waiting for? And whether the day I stop answering is the day she finally decides to come to the desk herself. There is a house at the end of Miller Road in rural Georgia that every person in town knows about, they just don't talk about it, not, because they are afraid of sounding crazy. Because the last 3 people who talked about it too much ended up inside it. My name is Cole Hadley, I am 29 years old. I grew up in Harlow, Georgia. Population 1,200. The kind of town where everybody knows everybody and secrets travel faster than news. The house at the end of Miller Road had been empty for 11 years when I made the mistake of going back. I say mistake, what I mean is, I should have listened to my grandmother when she grabbed my arm at the gas station the morning I drove out there and said, Cole Hadley, if you go down that road, I will never forgive you for what happens next. I laughed it off, I drove down that road, and what happened next changed everything I thought I understood about the town I grew up in. The house belonged to the Mercer family. Earl Mercer, his wife Dolores, their 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. They moved to Harlow in 1987 from somewhere nobody could quite remember. Bought the property at the end of Miller Road. Fixed it up. Earl got a job at the hardware store. Dolores made pies for the church bake sale. The kids went to school and played Little League and seemed perfectly normal. For 2 years, They were the most unremarkable family in Harlow, Georgia. Then, in the spring of 1989, all 5 of them disappeared overnight. No goodbye. No moving truck. No note. No forwarding address. Just gone. The house was found unlocked. Every piece of furniture still in place. Food still in the refrigerator. Clothes still in the closets. The kids' school backpacks hanging on the hooks by the back door. Like a family that had simply stepped out for an evening walk. And never come back. The sheriff investigated for 3 months. Found nothing. No evidence of foul play. No evidence of anything. Just a family that had been there one day and was not there the next. The house sat empty after that. Nobody bought it. Nobody rented it. Nobody went near it. For 11 years, until I went back to Harlow the summer I was 29 and made the worst decision of my life. I had been living in Atlanta for 6 years. Good job, good apartment, good life. I came back to Harlow that summer because my grandmother was sick and I wanted to spend time with her before she was 81, sharp as ever in her mind. But her body was done with the fight, and she knew it, and she had made her peace with it in the way strong women do. We sat on her porch every evening, drank sweet tea, talked about everything and nothing, the town, the people, the years. On my 4th evening there, she pointed down toward the far end of Miller Road and said, "You haven't gone down there. Not a question. An observation. No." I said, "Good," she said. Don't. I asked her why. She looked at her sweet tea for a long time. "Because the Mercers never left," she said. I waited for her to explain. She didn't. She just looked at the end of Miller Road and rocked in her chair and didn't say another word about it for the rest of the evening. I went the next morning. I know. But I was 29 years old, and I had grown up hearing whispers about that house, and I had never once in my life actually looked at it up close, and my grandmother's words had done the opposite of what she intended. The Mercers never left. I drove my truck to the end of Miller Road and parked in the overgrown driveway and sat looking at the house for a while. It was smaller than I remembered from childhood. White paint long since gone gray and peeling. Porch sagging on the left side. Shutters hanging at angles. Grass waist high everywhere, but the windows were intact. And the front door was closed, and when I got out of my truck and walked up the porch steps and tried the handle, the door was unlocked. I want to describe to you what it felt like to walk into that house, but I am not sure language covers it. The closest I can get is this. You know the feeling when you walk into a room and you can tell that someone was just there. The air still disturbed. The temperature slightly different. The particular quality of a space that has been occupied moments before that is what the entire house felt like. Not abandoned. Not empty. Not dead. Recently occupied. Like a family that had just stepped out for an evening walk. The furniture was still there. 11 years of dust on everything. But underneath the dust, the couch, the coffee table, the family photos on the wall. I walked to the photos and wiped the dust from the glass with my sleeve. The Mercer family. Earl, Dolores, 3 kids. Smiling. I had never seen them before. I was too young when they disappeared to have known them personally, but here they were. Ordinary, happy, completely normal looking. I looked at the family for a long time. Then I noticed something. In the background of the photo, through the living room window behind where the family was standing. A face. In the window. Looking in. I stepped back from the photo. Looked at the living room window in front of me. Empty.
Just the overgrown yard outside. Looked back at the photo. The face was still there in the window behind the family, partially obscured by the reflection in the glass, but unmistakably a face. A person. standing outside looking in through the window while the Mercers smiled for their family photo. Not one of the Mercers. Someone else. Someone who had been standing outside that window watching this family long enough to end up captured in their photograph. I put the photo down, and I heard the back door open. Slow.
Deliberate. The sound of a door that had been opened 10,000 times before and knew exactly how to do it. I stood completely still in the living room. Footsteps on the kitchen floor. Heavy, unhurried. Then a voice. Old. Male. Coming from the kitchen. I wondered when someone from town would finally come inside. I could not move. 11 years, the voice said. You all drove past every single day. Never stopped. Smart people. The footsteps moved toward the living room doorway. You are not a smart person, the voice said. An old man appeared in the doorway. Tall. Thin. White-haired. Wearing clothes that looked like they belonged to a different decade. Eyes pale and flat and completely without warmth. He looked at me the way you look at something that has walked into a trap you set a long time ago. The Mercers were smart, he said. At first. Then they started asking questions about the property, about what was on it before the house was built. He stepped into the living room. I had to explain things to them, he said. The explanation took a while. I found my voice. Who are you? He looked around the living room like he was seeing it for the first time. I have been on this land since before your town existed, he said. Before the road. Before the house. I was here when this was just trees and red clay. He looked at me. And I will be here when it is trees and red clay again. I ran. Out the front door. Off the porch. Into my truck. Down Miller Road. Without looking back until I hit the main street of Harlow. I drove straight to my grandmother's house. She was sitting on the porch. Like she had been waiting. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What did he look like?" I described him. She nodded slowly. My mother described the same man, she said, when she was a girl. Before the Mercers. Before the family, before the Mercers. She looked at me. He has always been there, Cole. As long as this town has existed. He lets people move in. He lets them settle. He lets them ask questions. She paused. Then he explains things. I asked what happened to the people he explained things to. She rocked in her chair. Nobody knows, she said. That is the whole point. I left Harlow the next morning. I have not been back. My grandmother passed away 3 months later, and I sent flowers because I could not make myself drive down that road again, even for her funeral, and I have not forgiven myself for that, and I never will. The house at the end of Miller Road is still there. I checked on Google Maps last month. Still standing. Still gray. Still at the end of that road. And in the satellite image of the property, a figure visible in the front yard. Standing perfectly. Still. Looking up at the camera. Like it knew it was being watched. Like it has always known.